Good evening, guys. Well, today's class we are going to be getting into a little bit more of Laravel. We are going to be developing a simple Laravel API, and let me just talk a little about what it will be. It's basically an API where you will send an app where you create a post, you can edit the post, you can update the post and delete the post. Just something simple like that. I will go over us learning the basics of CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete. Alright, first things first, what we have to do is create a new Laravel app. And to do that, we'll use the composer. Let me see if I can remember the command. Create project Laravel, name of app. Our name of app, we'll name our app, let's see, let's call it simple API. Simple post API. So press enter. Creating our Laravel app. To take a while, so we'll just wait for our app. And you know what, I will stop it here because kind of created in the wrong folder, so I want it to be created here. Copy the path, cd into that, paste, enter. Now we're in the right directory. Cd, paste, enter. Cd, no such directory. Okay, change the slash. There we go. Clear. Run our create command again. So our app will be created on this folder. There we go. Alright, our project is done creating. What we'll do is open it in VS Code. Right click here, open with code, go. Okay, this is our project folder. Now let's go over what we'll do first. First things first is our application is about storing stuff inside a database. So we'll ask ourselves, which database are we going to use? Where will we create this database? How will we create it and all? So in our last class I mentioned something about migrations, which is in the database folder and then migrations. Now you see each of these files here is represents a table that will be put into our database. Now if you notice the users table here, the users migration file, you see it has an ID, string name of type string, email of type string, and others. Now first thing is our project is about posting, creating posts, updating, deleting, and editing. Now we have to create a post table in our database. How do we create a post table? So open up our terminal here, our integrated terminal, new terminal. Wait for it to load up. Okay, we are in our projects folder here in this terminal. So what we are going to do to create one of these migration files are, we'll run PHP artisan make migration and name the migration. Maybe this is how you would create a migration. Name it create post table. Note the way I wrote this. We have our own migration here, post. So what this schema is basically the columns that will be in your database table. So in our post we would like to have a bunch of things. The post will have a title, so it will be of type string, and then the title. Our post will have a body. It will be of type, okay, posts are usually long, so there is a data type for accepting large characters in MySQL, and that is a text data type. So we have here string. A post can have title and a body, and also remember a post is going to be posted by a user. That is, in case you have a logged in user or an authenticated user, a post is going to be created by that user. So what do we do here? We'll add something called a foreign key to the user table. So we'll say here table dot unsigned big integer. Then the name of the column will be user underscore ID. This user underscore ID will refer to the ID in the users table. So Laravel is very handy in understanding some particular keywords. Laravel understands once you give this type of name, it will take the ID from the users table. Now, what we just defined here is a foreign key. So next thing we do is push our migration. So pushing the migration is what is used to create what is used to create a database. It's meant to push these tables into our database for use. Now, before we can actually do that, we have to go to our environment variables and edit some things. Now, skip this. Now you go down to the DB connection part. You see that our DB connection type will be MySQL. Our DB host is this, which is localhost, and then our DB port is this. Now we have to name our database, and we name our database. Let us name this host APIs. This will be the name of our database, the username and password. We'll leave it as is. I will save here. You'll be wondering, where is this database that we are talking about? And if we try to push our migration with this command, PHP artisan, PHP artisan migrate pushes our migration. You see that our migration at this point will fail. It says here no connection could be made to target. So this simply means that it cannot connect to this host and the port. Now, a while back we installed an application which is a XAMPP control panel, which was used to host our PHP applications. Now, in this case, we will need XAMPP to host our databases. So we'll go ahead and open the XAMPP control panel. Now we have it open. We'll start it up, start Apache and MySQL. Now, just by the side of this button, you see an admin button. You click that, it will open up your browser. See, going to localhost phpMyAdmin. phpMyAdmin is just a simple database management tool that is housed inside XAMPP. It's very useful. In our case, we use it to create our database. Now you can see that there's a new button here. when you click new, you're actually creating a new database. You provide your database name and then create. And what we do here, we go back to our environment file, copy our database name, post here, create database. Now that our database is created, we can simply push our migrations, PHP artisan migrate, and you see our migrations go smoothly. Now if we come back here, see that it's empty. If we refresh, boom, all our tables have been added. Now if we go to the database, post APIs, you'll see our tables here. Users, posts, page, personal access tokens, so on and so forth. But now that we have our simple database structure, we have to go ahead and use the database, right? Yeah. So next thing is what we call models. So like I explained in the last video or in the last class, models are instances of your database. Laravel uses models to search through the database for you and fill them and structure the output from the database. Now you see that there is a user model here, but we actually have to have one for post. So how do we create a model? You can do this simply by saying PHP artisan make :model, then name it post singular. Remember, your database is plural while your model is singular. And PHP artisan make model post. Now our model is successfully created. We provide what Laravel calls fillables. Fillables are basically the fields in the fields that a user is allowed to update or view. The fields users are allowed to typically update. So updating will have this protected fillable. To be an array of the values. So we'll actually have here user ID, comma, what other value is inside our table. We have the user ID, you have title, and then we have body. Now that we've done that, we have a simple model here. Now I'll also introduce something now here called a relationship. The user model and the post model have a relationship we call one to many. This means that one user will have many posts. Like example, I am a user, I can post 5 times, I can post 5 times, I can post 10 times. That's what this means. A post will belong to a particular user only. So in Laravel, we have to define that relationship in order to use it. So in our user model, we define the relationship to post by saying, creating a function here that says public function. Then you say the name of the model, name of the function, name it posts. So basically user has posts, and then what we do here, we return this user has many. User has many posts. So say user has many posts, and then you pass in the post class here. Now in the post class, we also define a function here. Say the public function user singular, because it belongs to one user. We misspelled this, so function user. Then what we return here, we will return this. A post belongs to a user, so we say belongs to user class. And we don't need to import user class because they all belong to the same namespace. Post and user belong to the same namespace. Basically, they are in the same folder. Now that we have our relationship set up, our one-to-many relationship set up, we can actually begin to run some API, add some API code. Now, first thing we need to do is define a route, an API route. So where do we do that? We go to our route folder, then open API routes. We ignore this one that is on the top. Basically say, we comment this out. And what do we do here? We say route the posts from database. So you will see in a minute what this HTTP get means. data we'll be passing here is the posts. Now, how do we get the posts from the database? In Laravel, we have something called eloquent commands. That's how we end up getting posts from the database. And it's handy because it uses the model we created to enter the DB and get the post. Now, how do we do that? We say post as the name of the model, then .all. I see that there is an error here because we need to actually import the post into this folder. So I'll simply do that. I have a handy trick to help me do that. So you see that it adds here the name of the namespace. Use app model post. The namespace slash the name of the class. So that clears our error. So now, if we actually run our app, remember in the last class we talked about running the PHP, the Laravel app, and we do that by using this command PHP artisan save. Now our app is running at localhost 8000. We open there up. This is our app. Remember in the last class I also mentioned when you're using your API routes, you have to do a /API, or else if you do only /post, you'll get a 404 not found error. So we actually have to add API / post. Now you see that it returns an empty array. So it means here our post table is empty. Now let's add simple data. Let's add simple data here. Open our post table. PHP my admin is simple. You can use it to insert values just for testing. Let's say our user ID here is 1, and then title is test, body is this is test, and we can add another one. Is a one, another title, say second test. This is the second test. We can just click here, go, and our values are created. Now if we go back here now and refresh, you see that the two things we just inserted into the database are displaying. So basically this is what an API does. It returns data to the user this way. So now let's actually, this is a simple get command. Now we can go to the simple types. So now, okay. We've done a simple get here with the get header, the get method, actually not header, the HTTP method get. Now we have what we call simple HTTP community, our HTTP methods. We have four, we don't have four, but we have four most important ones that we always use in development, and these four are the get method, the post method, the put method, and the delete method. So we'll be using these four for our CRUD operations. So basically, when we say CRUD, we're actually saying get, create. For create, we use the post. For read, we use get. For update, we use put, and for delete, we use delete. Alright, now if we actually change this to post and try and call this here, you see that we cannot run a post method in our browsers. Our browsers are only used to, our browser requests here are only used to push the get method. It doesn't work for any other one, even put here. We refresh, you see that it still fails. Supported, same type of error message, but the command is changed here. Now, to use that, we use a handy tool called Postman, but we'll not get into this now. So let's talk about controllers. Remember that PHP Laravel uses an MVC type architecture. MVC type architecture just simply means model view controller. So we've already seen what the model can do. Model helps us look into the DB and pick out stuff. Now the view we will not be using so much, but the view is basically what we see here. Let's see, this part to get. This is basically the view. When we refresh, we saw this in our last class. Okay, we actually take this off. The view is the front end. This is view. Going back to our list here. Now, the view is usually worked on in the resources folder, but since we are developing an API, we'll actually be using less of this. So we have next here the controllers. So the controllers are simply a way of arranging our code. Instead of writing functions like this inside our route files, we would like to leave this route file to be what it is called, a route file, simply where the application will come to look at to know where it's meant to go. Now, to create the controller, just like models and migration we did, we used an artisan command saying here PHP artisan make controller. Oops. have to write controller, spell it correctly or it fails. Then add our name of controller here. PHP has a naming convention they always use. You put the name of the model and then controller next to it. So we are creating for post. So we need a post controller. So if you press enter here, our controller will be created up here. Now you wonder where the controller is. So our controller is right here in the app folder, then HTTP. You see the folder called controllers. Click on controllers, you see our controller right here in the post controller. So how do we use this post controller? So we can now write a simple function here, public function. Let's name our function what we want it to do. We are going to get all posts. So what are we actually going to return? Let's create a variable here and put our posts inside. So we say posts will be equal to post get post all. Now we have to import this here too. We have to do this. So we are going to be returning a JSON response, returning a JSON response. We'll comment this out here. Say return response JSON, and then we'll put our posts here. So now that we've gotten our controller and put in a function, how do we actually call this function? So we actually do that from the route file. We have to take this off. So what we'll do here is put something inside an array. So we say this, create an array with a square bracket. Then we are going to mention the controller this route will access, which is the post controller. Post controller class. So inside the post controller, what method do you want this route to reach, or what function do you want this route to reach? And this is meant to reach the get all posts. So you see how Laravel made this definition easy. So any request made to /post, to API /post, it will enter this controller and then look for this function and run it. Very straightforward, very easy to read. So let's actually test this out. So if we refresh here, everything is meant to be normal. So if we refresh, you see here, okay, target class, post controller, okay, I know the error here. So remember that this controller class is not in the same namespace, or we have to import this class here. So we do this, we import it by saying use app http controllers post controller. So if you want to if you want to find out where this came from, simply go to the controller, copy out the namespace, come back to this place, then say use, paste this in, and then the name of the class, which is post controller. So that done, we have to go back here, then refresh, and you see that it's actually working. So to test that again, let's just create one more input. This one's user 1, title, third, chest. This is the third chest, and click go. Now come here and refresh again. See, we have our dead inputs. So we've gone over simple MVC structure and how it is very, very useful in Laravel. Now let's get into some real commands, like creating a post instead of creating it from this instead of creating it from this PHP admin. Alright, first things first, let us clear out our database now. We can actually do that with a Laravel artisan command. We'll say here PHP artisan migrate refresh. This will actually drop everything and reload it into the DB. Now if we refresh, we have an empty database. We come back here, we have an empty database. Okay, that is for getting data from the database. Now we actually want to create one for creating posts. So we have to go to our route file, which is the API.php. We're going to create another route here. Say route post, then slash here slash post, then post controller. We are going to name our function create post. We haven't created this function yet inside our post controller. So let us do a simple create. So we go to our post controller and create a new function here. So public function create post. Now we are going to be taking some parameters into this function. Say here request. So how do we actually create a post in Laravel? First thing, we're going to run validation. After running validation, we are going to insert into the database. After inserting into the database, we are going to return our JSON response. Now, first things first is the validation. You see here, we use request dash validate. This function takes in an array of what you want to validate. Now, what validation means is we are going to tell the Laravel app that this is what we expect. If we do not get these particular values in the request body, tell them that you have something wrong. Rather, it will just fail. Now, you see here, I'm saying the name of the field, title. We're going to be expecting a title, and that title in an array we'll define here. That title is required because all posts must have a title. And say comma here, then body is also required, and say add here user ID. And say user ID is also required. Now, next thing is inserting into the DB. So how do we do that? We again use the class, say here post dash colon create, and this create function takes an array. What will be here, we'll have the names of the tables, the names of the columns in the database table. So we have here title. Title will be equal to what we have in the request. So to be request dash title. Remember here should be user ID. So we have user ID. Then title, then body, we'll expect body too. So make sure you get this right. Now we have our post. We will actually put this inside a variable, name it new post, and then say equal to. When you're returning a JSON, you can say it's return response JSON. Now we want to pass in a message to the user or to the front-end developer, so you can actually you can actually display the message in his front end. So to define this, we actually do something simple like this. Say here, you can send a success, whether its success is true or false. So you can say here, success is true, because it actually ran this without jamming any error. So say here, success true. Yeah. Another, we see message to actually display. Say here you have successfully created a new post. Then we can put here our new post will be equals to this. This is a simple JSON response. Now, how do we test this? I mentioned something earlier about a tool called Postman. So if we actually go here, browse Postman, download, you see the first link, click on it. You have to get this tool because it's going to be useful in our development cycle. What Postman is a platform for testing your APIs. So I have it installed already and opened even. So if I go to this Postman, you see a bunch of other API projects I have going on. So we are going to create a folder for our project here. Let me clear this. So click on add new collection. We'll give our collection a name as soon as it loads up. Give our collection a name. What do we call it? The name of our project is what? Laravel Post API. So we hit these 3 dots here and say add request. First, let us test our get request. Let's name this get all posts. Now, what request URL do we actually use here? Remember, when we run our project, we had this. This is our base URL, just like we used it to get. If I go back here, just like we used it here, we're going to also use it in our Postman. Here, paste, save, and then we run. See that it also brings up an empty array. So let's add another request here and see add request. So create a post. Now you notice this little drop down here, it says get, but remember we defined these routes in our PHP route file. We defined these routes for creating to be posts. So no matter that 2 requests have the same request name, as far as you can differentiate them with the HTTP method, it will work fine. So what it will do is look for a post request. You can actually see the list of posts of HTTP methods we can use, but these are the fundamental ones we'll be using. We'll be using the get, post, put, and delete. So we choose post here, paste in our link, because it still goes to the same post file here, the post route here. but this time it's a post method. I know the names are confusing, but please don't get confused. Post method is the method that our request will go to. If we have this here, save. Now we have to specify what is called a request body, because now if we actually send this request, you see that it fails. You see that it fails here. So we shouldn't be actually getting this. So what we'll do, we'll add in a header. In the headers here, you add in an accept. You tell this app to only accept application/JSON and save it. So if we send this again, we should have a JSON response here. Now you see that we have a formatted error message. It says here, error is the user ID field is required, the title field is required, the body field is required. Now if we go back to our project here, in the post controller, you see that we actually said this and this and this are all required. Now if we comment this out and run it again, you can see that it is only the two it's bringing out as required. So a very handy tool. Laravel makes it so easy. Now, how do we actually pass in the request body? So there are two ways, but I'll be using the raw data format. So we go to body, we go to raw, and then select from this side. We have to select JSON. Now we have to open the curly braces. In that curly braces, we now define our body. So the first things first, we are looking for the title or a user ID first. Now let's use the column here, user ID of 1, comma. You can only use double quotes here, so take note of that. Next is title. Say a text. And then the body. This is now, if we send this request now, we should get a response back. I'm sending a request. Now, beautiful. We have our response message. You see here. Sorry about that. So we actually have our success message. So this is simple way Laravel makes it to create a post. Now that we've created a post, let us update one. So now I would like to just point out that this user ID I'm putting here is not the proper way of actually telling the app that this user is the one that wrote this post. So in the long run, we'll tell you how to actually automatically put this into the database without specifying it in our request body. So until then, we'll be using this very bad way of putting the user ID in the database. Now, next up, we're going to be updating the request, the post on it, which is inside the DB. Now, I just want to show you that the get method also works when we create it from anywhere. So if we refresh here, you see that we get something back. So that said, I can close this up because we'll be doing most of our work from Postman anyway. So to update, we create a route file first. So you can actually leave this as, oh no, okay. To update, we actually change this to a put request, and then if we are updating, we are going to be updating a particular post. So we have to take in an ID for that post, and in Laravel we define it like this: ID, or in better description we say post ID. So, and then we define a method here, so update post. So basically what this means is, in a request like this, and the update will be like slash the ID of a post, which is 1. So if we send a put request, it will look for this post, this particular post, and then whatever is inside the request body, it will update that post with this value that is specified in the request body. Now let's go back to our code. Now in the post controller, we create our function here, public function update post. We'll actually take the request here. So we can also run a validate on this guy. So we can run this validate, just in case someone doesn't want to update that. Remember, first step here is run validation, just like the create. Dash. The next step, we're going to find the post we want to update. Next, we're going to update the post if we find it. Then we're going how do we find a post in the database? Simple. Again, call post, find what this post find takes is actually the ID. Now, how do we get the ID into this function? We are going to put in another parameter, and we call it, doesn't need a type, it automatically detects it from the request, and we call it post ID. So we are looking for post ID of whatever the user passes through the request. And after looking through the database, to find this and to store it inside the post value. Now you ask yourself, what happens if we don't find this post? So if we don't find this post, whatever is returned in the database will be nothing. It won't find anything with this ID. So meaning this variable will be empty. Now we are going to use if statements. So if post say if not post. This simply means if this post is empty. Do not forget this exclamation mark that is behind the post variable. So it means if this post is empty, we are going to return an error message back to the user. So we can actually copy this. So this is no longer a true statement, it's now a false. Success is false, meaning our app encountered an error. You say the post ID was not found in the database. Actually say, can put this here. Which is nothing, it's empty. Now that we've taken care of that error, that possible source of error, the next thing we do is update the post. So this means that the user, this means if it passes here, this means that it found a post. So we are going to use this variable to run our file. Say here, arrow, then update. And this update function will take an array. You can copy this from here too. But we are not going to allow the user to update the user ID. Also, we do not need this here too. So at this point, our post is updated. So we actually can put this here in a variable called updated post. Now we are returning a JSON response. You can copy this here, paste. Success will be true because it has checked and no other error has happened. So the post was updated successfully. I'm going to put the updated post here and save. Now to test this, we go back to our postman. Let's create a request for it. Add request. Update the post. Change our method to put, and then let's copy this here, paste here, then slash. Let's try an ID that doesn't exist. Remember to add our accept header here. JSON. Now, if we also run this without a body, if we run this without a body, you see our validation also works here. Now we'll add our body here. Title. This. Now you see that the post ID was not found in the database, and then no error, no post was found. Now look at this This is because we passed this in. So if you, even if we say 2, send, you see that the ID does not exist. So what ID actually exists here? If we get all posts again, we'll get this post as there. So if we say we collect this ID and use it on these guys, put 1 here. Now take note of the name, the title, and the body here, and even this field called updated art. Now if we send this request, we get success here and this. So there's an error with our post. It's meant to return something else. So let us find what the bug is. This actually updates. So the update here actually happened. Let's change the title and then this, and also updated the time of updates. Well, why are you still showing me through here? To say body. Yeah, I cannot call body on bool. So the update actually returns a boolean. So if we want to get the updated value, we will have to do a find again. Then say updated posts, we reassign this, no need for this variable anymore. Close this here. Now if we run this again, we can have our updated value right here. So that is it for updating. So last but not the least is, okay, you know what, this is for getting all posts. I'd like to go over how to get a single post, return a single post. Now if we go ahead and create a second test, create this test to see how it's still working. Now get all posts. Now what if you want to request for only one particular post? So that's what we are going to look at now. In our API file, we are going to say, let's duplicate this because we are going to be using this same style, but we are not going to use the put method, we are going to be using the get method. So we change the name here to get single post. Copy this, go to our post controller, right above get post, let's create this function. Say public function get single post. Going to be taking the request, but we don't need the request here because we are getting a post. So, but we are going to need the post ID. Now, how do we get the post here? See, post equal to post find post ID. We are also going to have to check if this post does not exist, and remember we did that down here in our update. We can copy this here and use it here. Now if the post is empty, we're going to be returning this. The post ID was not found in the database. Now, we're going to run. After getting this, if this passes, if it actually found the post ID, it's going to return a success message. Now we are going to return this. This will be success. This will be true, sorry. I'm going to be returning this post back to the front end user. Now, if we go and quickly test this in our postman, create new request, then get a single post to be a get request. You can copy the request here. Now if you want to get the post 1, you can actually get it. Remember we created post 2. Now look at this error. Now let us add our accept header here. JSON. To save, we're saving here. Make sure our route file is saved. It wasn't saved before, that's why it failed. Now if we send this up, it says the get method does not support this route. Okay, mistake here. Error there. I made a mistake here, so I remove that and save my file. Now let us run this again and we get our post. We got a single post and then this post. If we look for 2, we will get 2, and if we look for 1 that doesn't exist, will fail. Alright class, that's great. So last but not least, we are going to be looking at the deletes. You can already guess how the route will be like, because we are going to be getting a single post and we are going to delete it from the DB. So our method here will be delete, and let us name it delete post. this, use the same URL style, save, go to post, and the last method, let us add here public function delete post. And we're going to be taking only the post ID. First things first, we have to find the post in the database, then delete it. So how do we do that? We already did that in our get here and our update. So we will find this post. After finding it, we're going to check if it exists. If it doesn't, we send the failure response. Simple thing here. Have to do this D, small d. Takes you to fail. Then next thing is to delete post and return JSON response. So how do we delete the post? Very simple. You can do it one of two ways, which is to use the post class and delete post ID, or the way we will use it here is using the variable that we find, post delete, just this, nothing else is needed here. Now I'm going to return the successful response. See here is true, success is true, has been deleted successfully. No need to return the post here for the user because we are deleting it. Now if we test this, say create request, say delete post, we change our method here to delete. Let's copy this URL. Okay. First of all, let's test that it fails. Remember our header, accept JSON. Let's fill this first. So if we send this, that it fails because we don't have any post with the ID of 1222. And let's create another simple post. Okay, test. Create this, our post has been created. We can run this and you see that we have 3 outputs now. If we get one of it, change this to 3, see that we are getting 3 now. Update it.
updating 3. Updated it, you go back to get that third that's changed. Now I want to delete the third also. You put here 3 and delete. You see that it has here through the post has been successfully deleted. Now let us confirm this. Get all posts. How many do we get here? We get 2. So it means the third one has been deleted. Now if we go back to get a single post, it doesn't find it in the database. So this is all we are going to cover for today, our simple CRUD application. So in the next classes, or when we start working on our projects, you'll see how other parts of the application can work, which is the authentication using the user ID that we used here properly, making the app automatically know what user ID to put in the database, and so on and so forth. So thank you guys for watching, or thank you guys for coming to class, and see you guys in the next one.